roadway evidence and forensically mapping the scene?
I was actually in the midst of training Investigator Calendar.
Okay.
And while he was collecting statements and video evidence, I was actually forensically mapping the scene and also the actual roadway evidence, marking it.
Okay. And was there evidence that you believed needed to be examined that couldn't be seized from there on the scene?
Yes, of course, in any crash, we want to obtain the data from the airbag control modules on board each vehicle.
Okay. And so after everything was concluded at the scene on that date of January 25th, on January 27th of 2022, well, where was the vehicle taken from the scene? That black Chevy and the silver Cadillac, where were they taken from the scene on the 25th?
Typically, if it's close by, we'll take it to our long-term storage at 14895 Dunlop Road, where we keep all of our evidentiary vehicles. There are certain circumstances where Texas Towing will take them to their yard and then later put them out at our long-term.
All right. And that long-term storage facility, is that like a secure location?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And so on January 27th of 2022, did you go out to that secure location to conduct an examination of the vehicles?
Yes.
And do you know who was the owner of the silver Cadillac SUV?
I believe it was the grandparents of the, I'm not too sure on the name.
Okay. And so under what authority did the search occur to take that data from the silver Cadillac?
It was consent of the actual owner of the vehicle, and he was there on scene with us.
Okay.
That way he had an opportunity to withdraw his consent at any time.
Okay. And can you just explain to the jury, I guess you kind of went over it earlier, but regarding this airbag control module, you received a certificate in being a technician and an analyst, is that correct?
Yes.
And was that through the Collision Safety Institute?
Yes, it was.
And so can you just explain to the jury what the airbag control module is?
A secure location is critical. Think of it like putting the evidence in a vault. No contamination, no tampering. This step alone could make or break a case in court.
So the airbag control module is a module on your vehicle that's hooked to the rest of the computer system. In the event that you're involved in a crash, whether it be with another vehicle, another object, what have you, there's a threshold that has to be met in order for your airbag module to be, or the algorithm on your airbag module to be awoken and to record an event. Typically that is 5 miles an hour, 8 kilometers per hour. Beyond that, typically if you reach a 10 mile an hour threshold, that's when the airbags will deploy and your pretensioners will fire off. Your pretensioners, if you've ever been driving and you kind of lean forward and then it locks you into place, that's your pretensioner holding you. In the actual collision where the airbags are deployed, those are also fired off and it sucks you back into your seat and keeps you from going forward.
Okay. And now, can you explain to the jury how you were able to obtain this data from the vehicle and get it in a format that you're able to feed it?
Yes. In addition to that being fired off, there's data that's recorded. It's pre-crash data that will provide us anywhere, depending on the manufacturer and the make and model, speed, accelerator, steering input, what have you. So that's what we're looking for on that actual airbag control module. If you've ever had your lights go off on your dash or what have you and have a mechanic look at your vehicle, they plug into a port that typically we call an OBD2 port. That's also called in the collision world a DLC, direct line to the computer. And so we use a cable to plug into that. We make sure that the vehicle has power, whether it be through the battery, or if we no longer have battery power, we'll hook a jumper cable up to it, or jumper cables or a battery box. so that we can provide power so that we can image the data on that module and make a copy of it, basically. So therefore, I hooked up the cable. There's a interface called a Bosch CAN Plus, and we utilize what's called the Bosch CDR tool, which is a software that images that data. Once we've hooked up all the prior connections and make sure it has power, it'll show us on that software that you do have a connection, and it goes through a three-stage process to image the data on that module.
That's the seatbelt pretensioner system, not just a safety feature, but also a black box trigger that stores valuable crash data. In a courtroom, that info can speak louder than eyewitness testimony.
Okay. And just CDR, does that stand for crash data retrieval?
Yes, it does.
Okay, and so did you do that in this case?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And in your training and experience and all the investigations that you conducted, have you found this method to be reliable and valid?
Yes, as long as the reports show that they have a complete image.
Okay, and is this widely used amongst the law enforcement field?
Yes.
Now I want to talk to you about the silver Cadillac specifically. And so I'm going to show you what has been marked as State's Exhibit C, just for identification purposes only. Can you please take a look at that and tell me if that's a fair and accurate depiction of the data that was extracted from that silver Cadillac?
Yes.
Okay. Now, regarding the data that was extracted, how was the session completed for, or was an event recorded for the silver Cadillac?
Yes, it was. Typically, it does show an event, and then we want to make sure that that event is to the crash in question. Because an airbag control module can actually be involved in more than one collision and record more than one collision. And it keeps a history of that.
Okay. And how was the session concluded?
So once we obtain the image off the airbag control module, then the raw data is actually through the software itself is basically put into a PDF form so that we can read it and analyze it and determine the pre-crash data on the actual vehicle itself.
Okay. And was this the direct to DLC access that you used to gain the data?
Yes, this one was direct to access, so it was through what we consider the OBD2 port.
Okay. Did you have to use any additional power ups?
Yes, on this one, there was a battery jump box utilized. And we notated that the driver's side curtain, driver front airbag, driver's side pretensioner, passenger side curtain were all deployed.
Okay. And so if we look at page 4 of the report, can you tell me about the ignition cycles at the time of download?
So the ignition cycles, and this is typically how we know that this crash goes to the actual crash in question. The ignition cycles are 16,531, and those are recorded throughout the life of your vehicle.
And if we turn to page 5, are you able to tell us of the complete file recovered from this silver Cadillac?
Yes, it was.
And what was the ignition cycle at the crash?
16,531.
Okay, and so that's kind of how you said you are able to confirm that is the correct event.
Yes, ma'am.
What was the safety belt status of the driver of the silver Cadillac?
It was buckled.
And then what is the maximum delta V longitude?
So the maximum delta V longitude is whether it records the delta V is a change in velocity, so a change in speed. So if you're traveling 50 miles an hour and you all of a sudden hit something and you drop down to 40 miles an hour, then that records in milliseconds uh, the amount of speed that you changed in that certain set of milliseconds.
Okay. And regarding the maximum delta V longitudinal in this case, what was the number that was assigned to that?
It was a -37. So a positive number indicates to me that a vehicle was hit from behind. So it's a rear to front collision, and a negative indicates that it's a front to rear collision. So it shows me that the collision that took place with this vehicle was at the front of the vehicle.
Okay, and in your training and experience, between what numbers is fatal?
Usually 23 to 24, -23 to 24 is fatal.
Okay, and you said in this case it was a -37?
-37, yes.
And so if we look at the pre-crash data, is it typically just 5 seconds before?
It's typically depending on manufacturer. There are manufacturers that go beyond that.
Okay. In this case, was it 5 seconds or more?
-37. To put that into perspective, the officer just testified that anything around -23 or 24 can be fatal. This impact was far beyond that threshold. That's not just a collision, that's a violent crash.
This particular was actually 5 seconds and half-second intervals.
Okay. And so I want to talk to you about that. So at the 5 second mark, are you able to tell if the accelerator was on or off?
The accelerator was being depressed at 55%, so about halfway down.
And did it tell you if the service brake was on?
It shows that it was off.
Okay, and what was the engine throttle at 5 second mark?
Engine throttle was at 47%,
And what was the speed that was indicated at the 5 seconds?
104 miles an hour.
At 4.5 seconds, what was the accelerator pedal percent?
It's still at 55.
And what about the service brake?
The service brake was off and the throttle increased to 48.
Okay, and then what was the speed at the?
Still 104.
I didn't hear that.
Still 104.
At 4 seconds, what was the accelerator pedal?
57.
And what about the service brake?
Service brake is still off.
And the throttle
49.
and the speed?
Still 104.
At 3.5 seconds, what was the accelerator pedal percentage?
58%, so it's increasing.
Was the service brake on or off?
It was off.
And what about the engine throttle?
49%,
And what about the speed?
still 104.
At 3 seconds, prior to impact, what was the accelerator pedal percent?
57%,
Was the service brake on or off?
the service brake was off.
What was the engine throttle?
47,
And what was the speed?
104 miles an hour.
At 2.5 seconds, what was the accelerator pedal percent?
56,
Was the service brake on or off?
it was off.
What about the engine throttle?
Engine throttle was at 47,
And what was the speed?
still 104.
At 2 seconds, what was the accelerator pedal percentage?
It was actually at 0, so the accelerator had been let off.
Okay, and was the brake on or off at this point?
It was on at 2 seconds.
Okay, and so what was the throttle at this point?
It came down to 36,
And what was the speed?
still 104.
This is where it gets chilling. 5 seconds before the crash, the driver is still pressing the gas over halfway down and hasn't even touched the brake. That paints a very different picture about intent or reaction time.
1.5 seconds, what was the accelerator pedal percentage?
0,
And what about the service brake?
still on.
What about the engine throttle?
It decreased to 29,
And what was the speed?
100.
At 1 second prior to impact, the accelerator pedal, what was the percentage?
0,
Was the service brake on or off?
it was on.
What was the engine throttle?
27,
And what was the speed?
90,
And then at 5 seconds, what was the accelerator, 0.5 seconds, excuse me. What was the accelerator pedal? percentage?
0.
The service brake,
It's on.
the engine throttle,
21.
and then the speed.
21 miles an hour.
Okay. Now, I want to talk to you about the Chevys. Did you also extract the airbag control model from that black Chevy?
Yes, I did.
And so I'm going to show you, D, which is marked for identification purposes. Can you take a look at that and tell me if that's a fair and accurate depiction of the data that you received relating to the black Chevy Equinox?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And so if we look at that data, can you tell me, was an event reported?
Yes, there was actually
Just event number 2, was that recorded?
yes.
Okay, and when we look at the inspection, was that also at the Donald Road location?
Yes.
Okay. On this one, did you do the same direct to DLC access method?
Yes, and the battery was still available as far as power goes.
Okay. And looking at the ignition cycles. Give me just a second. I believe it's reflected on page 17 of that report. Can you tell me the ignition cycles at the time of the event?
The event ignition cycles was 5,371.
Okay. And what was the status of the driver of the vehicle?
He was buckled.
Okay. And then what about the maximum delta V longitudinal for the black Chevy?
On longitudinal, it was a 22 positive, which tells me that there was an impact on the rear. And then on the lateral, which is side to side, it's a positive 38, which tells me that that is a driver's side to passenger side impact. So it impacted on the left side of the vehicle.
Okay, thank you. And then if we skip to page 28 of that report, were you able to obtain the 5 seconds of data for the black Chevy as well? The 5 seconds of the pre-crash data.
Yes.
Okay, and so, and looking at that, at the 5 second mark on the black Chevy prior to impact, was the accelerator pedal percentage, what was that?
12%.
Was the brake on or off?
It was off.
And what was the engine throttle?
31.
And what was the speed indicated?
4.
For 4.5 seconds, what was the accelerator pedal percentage?
0.
What about the engine throttle?
20.
Was the brake on or off?
It was off.
And then what was the speed?
5.
For 4 seconds, the accelerator pedal percentage, what was that?
25%.
Was the brake on or off?
It was off.
What was the engine throttle?
33.
And what was the speed?
6.
For 3.5 seconds, what was the accelerator pedal percentage?
33%.
Was the service brake on or off?
Off.
What was the engine throttle?
73.
And what was the speed?
8 miles an hour.
For 3 seconds, what was the accelerator pedal percentage?
27.
Was the service brake on or off?
Off.
What was the engine throttle?
74.
And what was the speed?
11 miles per hour.
for 2.5 seconds, what was the accelerator pedal percentage?
15.
And the engine throttle,
It is 40
was brake on or off?
off.
And what was the speed?
It was 13.
At the 2 second mark, what was the accelerator pedal percentage?
0
Was the service brake on or off?
off.
What was the engine throttle?
25,
And what was the speed?
14 miles an hour.
For 1.5 seconds, what was the accelerator pedal percentage?
0
Was the service brake on or off?
off.
What was the engine throttle?
21,
And what was the speed?
14 miles an hour.
And for 1 second, what was the accelerator pedal percentage?
0
Was the service brake on or off?
on.
And what was the engine throttle percentage?
16,
And what was the speed?
14 miles an hour.
And then for the 0.5 seconds, what was the accelerator pedal percentage?
0
The service brake, was it on or off?
on.
The engine throttle, what was the percentage?
12,
And what was the speed?
12 miles an hour.
Okay, now regarding the data that was seized from, that silver Cadillac. Are you able to conduct a mathematical analysis, with the data that you received from the airbag control module?
Yes, I did a time and distance analysis.
Okay, and so what is that able to tell you?
So basically utilizing the forensic mapping that we already collected, and it establishes the actual roadway, its markings, the area of impact. I can take from that area of impact and conclude the distance that the Cadillac traveled throughout each speed interval, and take him from that area of impact all the way back where he was at the start of that 5-second pre-crash data.
Okay, and this formula, is it widely used and accepted in the field?
Yes,
And in your training and experience, have you found it to be valid and reliable?
yes,
Okay, and so did you do that analysis in this case?
yes, I did.
Do you recall what speeds or how many different analysis did you do?
I had to do one for each half second, which gives me a distance for each of those half-second intervals, and then add each of those distances together to get a full distance that it traveled throughout those 5 seconds.
Okay, and so if we look at the data that you received from the airbag control module on the silver Cadillac, were you able, I guess, did you do a supplemental report of your findings when you did that map?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so I'm going to show you what has been marked for identification purposes only as safety exhibit B. Can you take a look at that for me?
Yes, it's the formulas that I utilized for each interval and the calculations to total.
Okay, and so earlier, I believe that you stated, before you get the distance, you have to do the speed to velocity, is that correct?
Correct. You have to take speed, convert it into velocity, and then you get you times it times velocity, and you get the distance.
Okay, and so in this case, what were your findings after taking the speed from the airbag control module? Converting that speed to velocity and then doing the time and distance, how many feet did the silver Cadillac travel in that 5 seconds?
Traveled in that 5 seconds, 688 feet. It's 688.5994 feet.
Okay. And then did you also do an additional calculation at 70 miles per hour?
Yes, I did one at 70 and one at 65.
Okay, and were these, what were the calculations of 65 and 70? What was that based off of?
Just the 65 was the posted speed limit, and the 70 was to give benefit of the doubt that some people proceed over the speed limit at times.
Okay, and do you recall what the speed limit is out there on that stretch of US Highway 181?
65 miles an hour.
Okay, and so then that 70 miles per hour calculation that you did, that was a 5 miles per over speed limit?
Yes, it was.